All aboard. We're at the Beaver train station, ladies and gentlemen, as the master gardeners are outside just, well, making the place look extra beautiful. Chuck Copeland is here as well. He brought the 1969 station wagon Ford. Now, what year is that? Just tell me.
Actually, 1977.
Well, I was off by 9 years. Story of my life. But one thing I can calculate and I can add up, this guy, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you add it up, he is a living legend that is a good friend and has been for decades, Mr. Dick Shaw, chairman of the board, Michael Baker Corporation, forever, president. Every time he left, he came back, and now Michael Baker International still thriving today. And if it wasn't for his tenure, they probably wouldn't be a part of corporate America and global business as they are today. You know, many years ago, I visited your office, sir, in your beautiful house with your lovely wife here in Beaver, and we were talking about how there were a lot of similarities in the natural gas industry to Saudi Arabia. When you and the Baker Corporation were laying those oil lines to, well, as we now know, the globe, to where anybody needs gas or petroleum or oil, they go to Saudi Arabia. Why do you see the similarities in the natural gas industry as far as what's happening with the Shell folks just down the road here in Monaco?
Well, in the early days, as you know, in Saudi Arabia, there wasn't the development that we see today in the Middle East and various countries in the Middle East. But the same thing applies to Beaver County. This Shell project is something totally new and different for this company and for our country, community, and for the region. There is no petrochemical activity in the tri-state area, really.
Could this be the biggest economic impact that this county has seen? And Rick Okreshevsky from the Keystone Lake Mountain Regional Council of Carpenters is here. And very shortly, some 6,000 employees, union workers, will be there working on what has already become an amazing tract of land because of the money that has been invested by Royal Dutch Shell. Their chairman actually here the other day visiting the Community College of Beaver County because of the jobs that they are creating with their curriculum that will hopefully take them from the classroom right to work for the folks at Shell, directly or indirectly, with all of the companies, the feeder stock companies, they're going to come here after they get this thing up and running. But is this the biggest stimulus, you think, economic stimulus we have seen in this region, maybe in 50 years?
Since the demise of the steel industry, absolutely. There is nothing that has taken place in the region that has the impact or will have the impact that this has.
How will it help people like Michael Baker, the former corporate headquarters? They're now up there, folks, right along the old entrance to the old Greater Pittsburgh International Airport, and they do such great work and still are. But at one time, they had a beautiful corporate headquarters in Brighton Township. That building has been since taken over by the folks at Royal Dutch Shell. But how is this going to benefit engineering firms like Michael Baker and others, and really companies that are involved in the business of manufacturing and building, Mr. Shaw?
Well, I think it will have a positive impact on everybody who provides professional services to not only to Shell but to related industries that will come to this area.
I'm not going to make this political, but I have to ask, you know, Mr. Trump talking about making America great again and helping the steel industry and the coal industry. And I'm a big fan of First Energy, nuclear energy, still clean burning energy that's necessary. You got the Bruce Mansfield coal-fired plant that's had some issues of late because of what the coal is dealing with across the country and worldwide. But here's the thing that I think people need to understand. Maybe someday, and the folks at GE and others are trying to stimulate wind and solar power, I just don't think we're there yet that we can actually give up on nuclear energy and coal energy before we find out exactly how viable wind and solar energy is for this country.
I agree with you. And if you look at the coal industry today, it's having a revitalization that we haven't seen for a long, long time. One of whether Mr. Trump has anything to do with it or not, the coal industry, particularly in western Pennsylvania and in West Virginia, is finally made a turn and is beginning to grow once again.
Sad thing is we just don't see enough of those stories in the headlines. Now, let's forget about business and talk about you. Obviously, you're still doing good. You're spry. Your wife, obviously, you're still getting out.
You're kind.
No, it's true. I hope to be upright by the time I'm 65, let alone your age, sir. But here's the thing. I got to ask you, You found it very therapeutic to remodel homes, and you did many of those, and you had a lot of those in the hometown that I remember well, New Brighton, Pennsylvania. Let me just ask you about this region and why you could have lived anywhere, but you never left Beaver County, especially when you were traveling the world and you had such a high-profile job. It wasn't a mansion for Dick Shaw, it was just home cooking, it was Beaver County. Why Beaver County?
Well, Beaver County, as you know, I grew up in Beaver and then relocated to New Brighton and Patterson Heights and a variety of places in the region. And fortunately, I was blessed with a wife who was very patient. I tell people that when a problem developed at home, even a death in the family, Mrs. Shaw was there to take care of it. I was off in the Middle East or in South America or in the far east, and she had to deal with all these issues and raise the kids, and which fortunately they've turned out very well. But she did it. She has credit for it, and just be grateful. We've been married for 65 years. We had a celebration here in the station of our 65th wedding anniversary, and it takes a patient woman to make that happen.
And maybe I'll figure that out someday. But I have to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if you get a chance, you got to come to this train station in the Beaver area at Heritage Museum. We're going to talk to Mark Miner about that more and about the job stimulus aspect of all of those great union jobs coming to the Shell petrochemical plant. But just to end on this note, Beaver County, you still, in your heart like me, there's no place like Beaver County, Dick Shaw.
Absolutely. I have the good fortune of most of my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren live in the Beaver area. I have a granddaughter who lives in Mount Lebanon, and when I visit her, I'm so glad to get back to Beaver because it just is just a totally different environment.
And I tell you, anytime my son and I are watching a movie about World War II, I always think of you, and that's the truth. We'll finish, and we have to, on your military service. Tell the folks about what you did in the military. And I don't think a lot of people know because you just don't talk about it that much.
Well, I was very fortunate. In my senior year in high school, we had to register for the draft, and I would guess months before I graduated from high school, a group of friends decided that we wouldn't wait for the draft, we'd enlist in the Navy, because the Navy would take you when you were 17 years old. You didn't have to be 18 like the draft. So we came to this station, and we got on a train and went into Pittsburgh. And we walked across the Smithfield Street Bridge to what was then the old post office building, which became the headquarters for Navy recruiting, Army recruiting, and the processing of people who had been drafted into the service. And I sat down before this Navy recruiting officer, and he looked at me and he looked at my birth certificate, which I have to acknowledge looked like it had been tampered with. And he said, "Come back when you're 17, Sonny." Well, I was 18, and within a couple months I was drafted into the Army, reported to that same building, and never came back to Beaver again until after World War II.
I salute Mr. Dick Shaw, my friend and truly a legend here in Beaver County, and anywhere that is the topic business, and someone will say Dick Shaw, more times than not, people know exactly who you're talking about. I know we do here in Beaver County. We'll have much more from the train station. Mark Miner and Rick Rokreshevsky, Keystone Lake Mountain Regional Council of Carpenters, still to come on this Thursday night with your Pratte Pack. Good evening.